Okay, good afternoon, Sasha. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. Thanks for making some time to come on the podcast and share your story. Could you just introduce yourself a little bit for the listeners?
My name is Sasha. I am a 44-year-old single mother of 3 daughters, currently residing in Tennessee. I am very strong about advocating for disabilities and inclusion, all about education, and just making sure it's not that I can necessarily change the world for my daughter, but if I can make a difference in her little corner of it, that's all that matters to me.
Definitely. What do you do to be an advocate? What are some of your activities?
Several things that currently that we're doing is I have worked on a book that is written by average height parents that have children with dwarfism. Achondroplasia is the most common, and that is what my daughter has. And 80% of children with achondroplasia dwarfism are born to average height people. So that was something that I had no idea about or anything at all until I had my daughter. I didn't even know while I was pregnant that she had dwarfism. It was after the fact. Another thing that I'm very much involved in is Instagram. It's Differences Decorate the Soul. It's an advocacy loop. We kind of put the word out there. And Inclusion Matters is another one. Just really trying to have the world embrace that we're all unique and we're all different in our own ways, and that just because you have a disability, be it physical, mental, a learning disability, anything like that, it doesn't make you less than. So my biggest platform is I do the hashtag advocate like a mother, and my biggest platform is differences are what make us us. And there's nothing wrong with having a disability. In fact, we don't even say disability in my family. We use different ability.
Mm-hmm.
Because they might have a different way of doing things, but they're going to get things done somehow, some way. Especially with my own child who has achondroplasia dwarfism. That's something having to adapt, being a smaller body, and the world isn't made for them. The world is made for average height people. So she can do things. She just has to learn her own unique ways to actually accomplish the tasks.
Definitely. Well, tell me more about your daughter. She's 3, right?
She is 3.5.
3.5.
Going on 13, going on 13, sometimes going on 30. She is very smart, very sassy, very sweet, very silly. She has a personality that is 10 times the size of her body. She doesn't meet a stranger. She's just got this magnetic personality, and people just flock to her. And for a little while I was thinking, well, maybe it's just because, she's little. So they kind of curious, but even the kids in our neighborhood, they really don't treat her any different. So we got a couple of them that'll say, oh, baby. And she'll remind them, I'm not a baby. I'm not a baby. I'm a baby. And she'll let them know real quick. So she's already learning to stand up for herself too.
Awesome. And you said that you weren't aware of the diagnosis until what age? What age did you get the diagnosis?
Well, after she was born, that's part of the thing that's in my book. That's part of the story. So I'll share a little bit about that. It's really funny because during my pregnancy, there towards the last trimester, my OBGYN kept saying, you're going to have a C-section. Your baby's measuring large. Big baby. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to have C-section. We're not going to do that. And I didn't. And it's funny, she actually did weigh 9 pounds.
Oh, wow.
But she had all these cute, adorable little rolls, kind of like, that Michelin man or just a little Shar-Pei puppy with all these little rolls, because she had all this extra skin, because her long bones, which is what achondroplasia affects, is the long bones in your arms and your legs. Those bones are shorter. So the skin's there, the bones weren't. And they kept taking her away from me and doing tests, but they didn't tell me what they were doing. And that's one of the things that still upsets me to this day. Communication was non-existent. There was none going on. We were there. We stayed the entire weekend. She was born on a Friday. Funny story, funny little thing. All 3 of my kids, 16, 7, and 3, they were all born on Fridays. I picked all their birthdays.
Yeah, good job.
So it wasn't until we were leaving the hospital that the doctor came in and was like, so we suspect your daughter has some kind of form of dwarfism. We're going to refer you to a geneticist. So at 3 months old, she got her official diagnosis.
Okay.
I kind
How
of
was that?
came to grips with it beforehand. It's one of those things that this is one of the things I tell people, parents especially that have a child that's affected with a disability or a special need somewhere. You're allowed to grieve. It's okay. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to feel indifferent. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. Those are all human emotions and they're perfectly normal. And I remember going through all those stages of grief because I was sad, I was mad, I was shocked because all the plans that I had, she's my third daughter. I was seasoned mom. I'm like, this is gonna be a cakewalk, another girl, no issues. I've got this in the bag. Totally different having to raise this one from the others because of all the do's and don'ts. And there's a lot more don'ts than do's. And it was just, I had to let myself have those moments to break down and be like, oh, so it's not going to be what I expected. It's not going to be the life I had envisioned. It's going to be different. It's been different, but it hasn't been any less wonderful. We all had to make the adjustments.
Well, how was it when they told you that there was a suspicion when you left the hospital? Was that a shock to you? Like, were you starting to suspect something was going on?
Yeah. I think they took her away from me and it was 4 a.m. It was the same night she was born. And I was hitting that button. Where's my baby? When can my baby come in? My other 2 got to stay with me the whole time. I don't understand what's going on. And they finally had to come in there and calm me down because I was hysterical. And we'll get your baby, ma'am. We'll get your baby. And they brought her in and I'm like, I want to know what they're doing. What are they looking for? Why do they keep taking her? So I just unwrapped her from her blanket, took off her onesie, she's laying there in her diaper, and I'm just looking at her, And then all of a sudden, like just a calm. It really was like just a calm wave, and I felt at peace. And I remember telling her father, I think I know what they're looking for. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how I referred to her as my little munchkin the whole time I was pregnant. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's what it is. He's like, you mean she's a little person? And I said, I'm pretty positive that's what's going on. They tell you don't Google, but let's be honest. I Googled.
Everyone does.
I used Google and I was comparing pictures of her to these kids on the screen. And that's what I ended up seeing, that she definitely looked exactly like what I was seeing on Google. So I think I came to terms with it very, very quickly. And I mean, I knew in my heart when they said the suspicion, they brought her back to me. I looked at her, looked her over, went to that Google, which they tell you don't, but we all do it. And I decided, it's okay. It's so if they would have just told me, I wouldn't have had all this that went through. I went through a very big anxiety attack because there's something wrong with my baby and they're not telling me anything and they keep taking her for tests and I'm not signing any papers. Like I didn't sign anything. I didn't consent to anything. They just kept doing it. And she went through a CT, an MRI, radiology for bone scans and x-rays and all kind of things. And I had no idea. They kept sending her and I'm like, I want my baby with me.
So it sounds like, go ahead.
That those first moments, you're just like, something's wrong, what's wrong? And of course it's panic more than anything.
Sounds like you came, there is the grieving process, but you came to terms pretty quickly. Is there anything that you wish you had known kind of in that time period of finding out that you know now, but I wish you had known at the time?
The biggest thing is like, if they would have, like I said, if doctors would have just been open and honest and been like, this is what we think is going on. This is a possibility. Because of course they can't make that diagnosis, just at the pediatric level at the small town hospital. They'd send you to genetic specialists for this, in the genetic testing, blood works, saliva swabs, all of that stuff. I think though, like if they would have just been upfront and honest, I wouldn't have had such freak out moments. But I don't think that the worry and the wonder and the stress, am I doing things right? Is it something that I did wrong? Was there something I could have done different? I think that's all perfectly natural, normal responses. And I don't think that anything could have lessened that part at all. That would have been their purpose.
So when you got the actual diagnosis, did they explain those kinds of things? Like it wasn't anything that you did?
Yes. We had a really good geneticist at Eggleston Children's Hospital in Atlanta. And like I said, the form of dwarfism that my daughter has is completely random. Anybody can have a child with achondroplasia dwarfism. With her type, anybody. And it can happen. It's not necessarily your first child. It could be your first child. It could be your middle, your third child. It could be your seventh child. It's just a random genetic mutation that happens. Now, she's more likely to have a child with achondroplasia, but she could just as easily have a child that is average height. It just depends on, is she going to be with a person later in life that's average height, or is she going to be with a person who has dwarfism as well? So those kind of things kind of get, there's a lot more to it going into her life than to mine. Mine, it was just completely random. She has a 50-50 chance of going either way. I know that was one of the biggest things, like the questions that people ask me most often was, did you know while you were pregnant? Does it run in your family? The answer to both was no. I didn't know until after she was born, and no, it's not something that runs in our family. That she's my first experience with, a live person, not seeing someone on TV or movies or books that have achondroplasia.
Okay. Well, KK sounds like she has a really big personality. Do you have a favorite memory you'd like to share?
Every day is something. Like, she's just so amazing. I think one of my favorite memories or moments with her was over the summer when her 7-year-old sister was playing soccer. Kaylani had done yoga, has been learning yoga at physical therapy. So she has all these kids, and she's little, and of course someone referred to her baby. I'm not a baby, I know yoga, watch me. And she's doing yoga. So now she's got this group of kids, and there's like a menagerie. I mean, they are different backgrounds, different skin colors, different ages. We've got boys, we've got girls, we've got 2- and 3-year-olds, we've got 7-, 8-year-olds. And she's like, you need to do yoga, we all need to be calm. And she sits down crisscross applesauce in the grass and says, calm. Say it with me now. Calm. And then there's this circle of like 10, 12 kids, and they're all calm circle, and then doing, warrior pose and tree pose, because she's leading this yoga, these yoga exercises on the sidelines. People, like I said, people just flock to her. And I always thought, well, maybe it's because, she looks, we haven't really gotten a lot of people that have noticed that yet. She knows, because I've always been straightforward with my kids. You do have achondroplasia. That's why people think you're a baby, because you're smaller, your body's smaller. So they might call you a baby. Most of the time, they don't mean it to be rude, sweetheart. They just think that you're younger than you are. So I've always been open and honest and tell her. So she'll tell you, I have achondroplasia, but I don't think she realizes yet that that's what makes her stand apart from other people. She doesn't let it stop her. She's like, I want to go outside. I want to kick the ball. I want to climb the stairs. I want to, play on the swings. I want to do everything that all the other kids are doing. And, I'm trying to stand back and not be that hovering helicopter mom, because I'm always like, oh my gosh, you're going to fall. Oh my gosh, she's going to fall. Oh my gosh, no, you can't do that. You can't. And I don't want to get in the mindset of telling her, no, you can't. Let's find a way that you can do this.
Now, are there any precautions that you have to take with her?
We don't do stairs a lot, because her little legs, literally from her heel to her hip, are tiny little legs. Yeah, she's still wearing 6 to 9 months pants as far as length goes, and she'll be 4 in February. So stairs are difficult for her. But she has started doing riding a bicycle, a little tricycle, learning to pedal, but mostly it's climbing structures, playground equipment. We do not do trampolines. That's a big no-no with them. Now it's not so much, but when she was younger, with like baby stage, no swings, no bouncy seats, nothing that has that C curve because of the way their structure of their back and spinal stenosis. So that was the biggest thing. Now she's pretty much trying to do what everybody else does, but there are moments when she's like, Mom, my legs hurt, Mom, my back hurts. So if she's been outside playing, she can run around with the other kids for about 30 minutes, then she's gonna have to sit down and rest, because it does, she gets tired easier. So I don't try to limit her and tell her no. We try to let her do pretty much what other kids are doing and let her decide, no, I can't do this. But as far as like medically, what she can't, like trampolines and contact sports and things like that are supposed to be a no, just because of the way her spine and, spinal structure and things like that. It can be very detrimental if she was to get hurt.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like people to know about KK?
Mostly don't judge the book by the cover. Obviously, it's a big one. She may be small. I know a lot of times you'll hear people in like dwarfism parents of little people, especially say, small, that's all. It's really not all. There are some medical setbacks that come with it. So like, people say, don't tell her not to do that, or unless you know what you're talking about. If I say no, she can't jump on the trampoline, they'll be like, no, she's fine, let her jump on the trampoline, things like that. Don't undermine that, because there's a reason for it. But mostly, she is so smart and bubbly and got such a great imagination. I think sometimes people think, oh, she has dwarfism. They think that maybe that affects her cognitively, her mentality, and it doesn't at all. She spoke well before the milestone was supposed to be met. But like other milestones we struggled to meet. Walking, she never actually really crawled. She did more of like, they call it, I think they refer to it as snowboarding, where they're on their back and they use their feet and they push with their feet against things, or put their feet up on the floor and bend their legs and push. She did it mostly on her back. Walking, she was almost 2 before she actually walked on her own. So I think the biggest thing would be mental, like the mentality and cognitive ability and learning, and she can do all that. She knows her ABCs. She can tell you her name. She can pronounce the word achondroplasia better than most adults.
Yeah,
I just get to pronounce it.
Better than me, I think.
She can say that word.
Good.
And she just learned to say papilledema, which is an eye condition that affects the optic nerve, that we're keeping a check on. Hers is actually under control, but it is another thing because they typically do have larger heads. There can be cranial pressure on the optic nerves behind the eyes and cause, some blindness, some blurred vision and things like that. So she just learned to say papilledema.
She's got quite the vocabulary.
She's gonna know the medical terminology at least.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what's her superpower?
I think her superpower is her amazing strength. This child has been through so many tests. She's been through decompression surgery, where they cut open the back of the neck and they go into the brain stem, the base of the skull, where it's the hole where the brain stem and the spinal cord meet. Hers was compressed too small, so they had to go in pretty much with like a Dremel, drill that out. She was only 9 months old. She's been through countless sleep studies, MRIs, sedation, tonsils out, adenoids out, tubes in, all kind of surgeries and tests. And this child rocks it every time. This last time was 2 months ago. She went in for an endoscopy where they have to put the camera down, and she came out of anesthesia and she had her hand back like this and she had a popsicle. I come around the corner. She said, "Hey, Mom, I had fun. Can we do this again?" And I'm like, what? Then the nurse was like, "I wish I had a patient like her, like all the time. She's been great." And she looked, my 3-year-old looks over her and says, "You've been fantastic. I think you need a trophy." To the nurse.
Oh
So, I
my
mean,
God.
she always
How
just
cute.
goes in and she's just like, she doesn't complain. She doesn't act like it bothers her so much. You know, she doesn't like it when she has to get her eyes dilated. And that's about the only time she really has a moment where she loses it. But I mean, just goes in and whatever they need her to do. Can we do this? Can you sit up here? Can we weigh you? And she'll go step up on the scale by herself. So I mean, her amazing strength is definitely her superpower, and it's something that she's kind of, taught me how to be a stronger person for sure, and how to like look at the glass half full instead of half empty, so to speak.
Yeah, really good lesson. Are all the things that she's, you've mentioned quite a few different procedures. Are those all typical for her diagnoses? Yeah.
They are typical routine. We're at a year out now as far as MRIs and sleep studies go, but she was getting them every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And then
Okay.
the eye exams were every 6 months. And I mean, she has a team of doctors. So we live about an hour from Nashville, Tennessee. So we were driving back and forth several times a month just to go see her doctors. I mean, there's doctor's tower. I think there's 12 floors, and she sees everybody she sees the doctor on every floor.
Oh my gosh.
So we can
That is
get
a
pretty
lot.
busy. Yeah, but it's all typical things. And that's why I say when people say small, that's all that, I wish that was all there was to it, because there is more things to consider. But I don't want that to be what defines her.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't had any personal experiences with someone with dwarfism, but I think that is how it is talked about in like media and stuff, that they're just small versions of like a typical person, like, and I don't know, it's just not talked about a whole lot. And so I'm assuming that you found a community of other moms or parents or relatives of kids with
Yeah.
dwarfism and have learned quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Social media, I mean, social media has its good and it has its bad, but for us, it's mostly been good, positive experiences. That is how there are LP chapters, but with COVID and all of that stuff, and her being so young, and then COVID hit, and like the whole world was locked down forever, we haven't really connected with our local LP chapter yet, but it's on our to-do list for 2022. Mostly it's been social media groups, little people. There's LP parenting groups, and I'm really, really involved with Angela Singletary. She's the one who does the book series, A Little Perspective. And I've met some amazing women just from doing these book projects with her that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I mean, these are people that I've started talking to nearly every single day. If there's questions, concerns, even just something simple as, oh no, she's turning 4. What should I get her for her birthday? It's good to have people that can relate to you more than just, oh, well, I'm a mom, or oh, I'm just a woman. Okay, well, I'm a single mom, and I'm a mom of 3, and I'm a mom of all girls, and I'm a mom of a child that has dwarfism. So finding your niche has been a challenge, but they are some amazing support groups out there. There's amazing people out there. And that's why I said, like, Instagram with the differences decorate the soul. The one that's inclusion matters is not just for dwarfism moms. It's for moms with children with disabilities. And her dwarfism does qualify as a disability. So she has that. It is a physical disability. There's also, I'm involved with a group on Facebook that's called Smile Mail. And that group is open to any children that have special needs, medical diagnosis, those kind of things, and their siblings. And we connect kids with adult volunteers that will send mail to them once a month, just a card, maybe some stickers, a color sheet, something like that, just to brighten their day, month to month. And that's been a very positive community for me too. And there are all kinds of disabilities and limitations in that group that are represented.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's good to have the mixture of just the special needs community, because obviously we can relate to a lot of things, just you and I, but then the specific diagnosis group, because then you really, really get that experience, or you could give advice or get advice, as other people are coming in, you could be the one that teaches,
Exactly.
and get to share what you've learned in your lessons. So speaking of which, what do you feel like is your greatest lesson from parenting?
I gave that question a lot of thought. And honestly, I think my greatest lesson has been let go of trying to be in total control, because things are going to happen that you cannot have control over, that you cannot take control over. And the other thing is, stuff happens in life, and you have to embrace it is what it is. We cannot dwell on or get stuck in a rut. We need to continue to move forward. And having a special needs child has taught me that life may not go as planned, but that doesn't mean that life's not going to be beautiful all the same.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's still been, I wouldn't trade her for anything in the world. And I know that sometimes I get asked, well, if there was a cure, or are you going to let her go and get that surgery where they lengthen her limbs to make her, why? To make her fit into your world?
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to make that decision for her. That's going to be a decision she's going to have to make for herself. That's why I said I'm not going to change her, and I can't change the whole world, but we do want to make a difference in the little corner of it. So I know that having her has made me realize that you do have to advocate for your kids. You have to never stop advocating, never stop educating, never stop fighting for your kids, be their voice. But at the same time, my hope is, while doing that for my own child, I'm also doing it for other children, around the world as well. Let's make a difference for all of them.
Yes,
I know.
I think the things that I was just saying about teaching other parents as they come along, they get their diagnosis and they join the community, but they also see you doing things like advocating and educating, and then that spreads, so it has this ripple effect, definitely. Do you have any advice for other parents?
Give yourself a break. Give yourself time to don't squash your emotions, whatever they are. Do not lessen your emotions to save face with other people. If you're upset, if you're angry, if you're breaking down, feel all of that. Feel those emotions. Take your moment, sit in those emotions, feel that, release it, put it back into the universe, and then move on. I know in the very beginning, my daughter's father didn't want to say anything to anybody. Well, we're going to make sure we have this direct diagnosis, and we're going to have it in writing before we say anything. And he wanted to keep it hush hush. And I was like, I don't want to hide my child away from the world. Well, right now people just think she's a smaller baby, so let's just leave it at that. And I felt like that was, it fell under the umbrella of suppressing things and keeping it. Why are we keeping it a secret? Why are we hiding her? Why are we acting like something's terribly wrong? I remember telling my now 16-year-old, who was 12 at the time, I brought her into my room. A baby was just, a few days old, and I let her hold her sister, and I said, I've got to talk to you about the baby. And she's like, oh God, what's wrong? And I was like, she's a little person. She has dwarfism. And she's like, Mom, is that all? I thought you were going to tell me she was going to die or something. I thought she had some kind of, baby cancer or something. And that right there in that moment, I was like, everything's going to be okay. Like, people are not going to be, the world has its handful of cruelty, and people that are judgmental and are always going to look down no matter what. But for the most part, those in your circle are going to embrace whatever it is, and they're going to be there for you, and there's strength in numbers, and it really does take a village. I know all those cliches. So basically, find your support system and feel whatever the emotions are, feel them, don't squash them. Because if you hold those in later on, you're going to break down.
Absolutely. The suppression of everything builds up. And yeah, it sounds like your husband at the time. Yes. No. Okay. It sounds like KK's dad had maybe felt like some shame around it, maybe? Do you think? Did he ever come to terms with it okay?
Whether he's come to terms with it okay or not, I really don't know. We've never actually had that conversation. We are no longer together. In the early moments, I think it was something where he was feeling like people are going to see there's something wrong with my kid, and I think he felt maybe some blame and some shame at the same time. Like maybe he thought it was something to do with him. We both went through that. But rather than I didn't just shut that all down. Of course, I went and I talked to my sister's been an amazing person to have in my corner. My oldest daughter has been great with her sister the whole time. And I do have a small tight-knit circle of people who were there for me from day one, that talked to me. They were like, we love her regardless. Oh, she's just going to be little. That's okay. We're still going to love her. She's still amazing. She's still great. And of course, I mean, she's amazing. She's beautiful. She's bright. She's bubbly. But those early moments, I do think that, he and I both probably were like, what did we do wrong? Because like I said, it wasn't until she was 3 months old. So he didn't want to say anything. It's like, I think maybe he thought if speaking it out loud kind of put it into the universe would make it so, but I had already come to terms with that's what it was. He was still hoping that it was wrong, a misdiagnosis, that they were going to be wrong and nothing was going to be wrong.
Yeah.
Not that dwarfism is even necessarily something wrong.
Yeah, that's that's understandable. It's kind of just, well, I'm not gonna be accepting that until I hear it like for sure. And you had already kind of felt like it was sure enough to be there. Okay. Well, how do you feel like parenting KK, being her mom, has changed you?
Oh gosh, definitely has put me in a mindset of equality, inclusion, advocacy, making a difference for all children. I look at things now, like just driving down the road, I'll look over at a playground. I'll be like, that slide's going to be hard for her. I don't know that she'll climb up that one, so you kind of look at life a little different, but in a more positive light. She's brought such joy and strength to our family, and she has taught us about acceptance and love and like perseverance. Like I've never seen a child with such tenacity in all my life. Like she is just go. And it's funny because in my LP mom group, we do all talk about how it seems like when all our girls that have dwarfism, like they got an extra sprinkling of sass, because it's like they can learn to hold their own. So she's kind of showed me how to stick up for even myself, because before I wouldn't. Like it all comes back to that strength. That's her superpower is strength, and she's taught me more than I could ever teach her ever in life.
How do you feel like it's changed her sisters?
Her oldest is more like protective, and she's always been my wise one. She was wise beyond her years, even as an only child. She just, I don't think that she's actually helped me understand and kind of fall into the advocating for everyone, because she's kind of the gender norms. She has a lot of friends that are, they, them. So she's actually teaching me about that too. So I don't feel like it's really changed her so much as she's embraced it with no issues, the oldest. My 7-year-old, she is mini mom. So she's always like, no, KK, don't climb on that. Oh, let me help you go down the stairs. So she's more conscientious of someone else rather than self-absorbed at 7. So she's very protective and very helpful when it comes to Kaylani, because she knows she needs extra help. So she'll grab her stool out and put her stool up. She'll help her put toothpaste on her toothbrush. So she's kind of become mini mom. But we, as a family, as a whole family unit, we're definitely more embracing of others and very definitely spread the word on dwarfism awareness, obviously, because we do have a child that has that specific diagnosis.
That must warm your heart to see them really like being tender and protective of each other.
It's beautiful.
I love to see the kids' relationships formed as, siblings or friendships, kind of growing and evolving as they grow up. I really love that part of parenting. Do you have any thoughts on the future for KK? Anything you're looking forward to?
Mostly we're just gonna, take whatever life throws at us together, head on, headstrong. I really am looking ahead to modifications that are going to have to be made when she's in mainstream school, and how children are going to treat her. And I'm hoping, I know it's going to come down to a bullying situation or making fun of a situation somewhere, and I'm just trying to make sure that we can embrace that at home, and we try to kind of give her a thicker skin even now, just hoping that she can hold her own.
Sounds like we'll be able to. I don't think you need to worry about it too much. She sounds pretty tough cookie.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned a lot of great resources. What would you consider some of the best things that have helped you along the way?
Getting involved with LP community, especially other average height parents of children with dwarfism. The Little People of America organization has been great. Even social media, I know there's like I said before, positives and negatives. I've just looked for the positives. Book projects, people that put out books on special needs. Anything that you can read is definitely good sources. Just kind of stay away from Google, because you can kind of you can fall down a rabbit hole with that one. So I do try to stay away from Google. Mainly just finding your tribe and sticking close by.
Do you have anyone like that you see physically that have a child with dwarfism, or does she have friends that have dwarfism?
She does not currently have any close by. We have met a couple of people before, but we do FaceTime, we do picture shares. Like, we're highly involved in, like I said, the advocacy loop. So she knows children by name, and she can point them out, over social media and things like that. Where there's FaceTime, there's phone calls. So like I said previously, we haven't been able to actually go to an LP event because of pandemic and COVID and all of that stuff. So that's definitely stuff that we're looking forward to doing, because there are several people that I have connected with through social media that are close enough that we can do, play dates a couple of times a year.
Well, that would be fun.
She's gonna love it.
Yeah. You've already got it scheduled.
She says that's her husband. That's who she's gonna marry.
Oh my gosh, how funny! That's so cute. Then they'll have like a little mock wedding. They're so funny. So you already mentioned they don't have cognitive issues. Typically, that might be a misconception. Are there any other misconceptions that you'd want to debunk?
That's been the biggest one that I've heard so far. Like, she's only 3.5, so we haven't gotten a whole lot of things, but mostly the small. I've also mentioned small. That's all they think, that all there is to it is that they're just smaller than the average height person, and that is true that they are smaller, but there are like medical things that come with that. She does have sleep apneas, so there's oxygen machine in my house. Things that she needs at night, to be on oxygen, doctor's appointments and visits. The cognitive thing, she's, she got a great vocabulary, very, very vivid imagination. She is great at making friends. Just because she has dwarfism doesn't mean that she doesn't want to be included, or that she shouldn't be included. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, no, she can't do that, so don't play with her. But there's enough things. She can go outside, she can run around, she can play tag. She's probably gonna never get you out, but she can still wants to go out and run around and play. Like, don't leave them out because you think of all the things that they can't do. Just include them and she'll find a way to fit in.
Are there any things that you'd like me to have asked that I didn't, that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think we talked about a lot. We've covered a lot of ground.
Definitely. I agree. Are there anywhere you'd like to mention anything specific about the books you've been involved with, or anywhere listeners can connect with you online if they want to?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Facebook at I'm Sasha Albright. Kaylani has a blog, Pint Sized Princess in a Big World. That's also through Facebook, and we are on Instagram at Sasha Lee 1213. And this is the book that just came out. I know it's probably going to come off as crazy on that. Special Delivery from Pregnancy to Toddlerhood. And it is in the Little Perspective series. This is a book of collective work of stories of average height moms. There's a couple of dads that contributed too. We're all average height that have children with dwarfism. There are several different types of dwarfism also in here. It's not just all achondroplasia. And it's just stories that we did the project in hopes that we could help new parents that are facing the same diagnosis, just basically letting them know that it's not an end of the world thing. You're going to worry. There's going to be a lot of worry. There's going to be a lot of wondering what to expect. What can my child do? What can my child not do? How should I handle parenting this child? But in the end, it is a wonderful journey, and you won't regret taking it. Of course, nobody ever, I couldn't imagine anyone ever regretting their children, but there are those parents that get asked. I've been asked that question too, and I'll never understand why people think it's okay. But do you wish that maybe you decided not to have her? And the answer is always going to be, well, hell no. Of course I wouldn't have done anything differently. Of course I would have still had her. So just removing that stigma has been a big thing, and that we're hoping that the book definitely helps.
Awesome. I'll definitely include that in the show notes. But I really appreciate your time, Sasha. It's really lovely meeting you and getting to know you a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun talking to you today.
That was awesome. All right. Have a fantastic day. Bye.
Bye.